I was like trying to like do my own like George Lucas slash Ridley Scott, like having like little miniatures on set. It's such a joy, you know.
That's
It's just
so
cool.
cool.
This is cool to hold it, you know. You're like looking at the spaceship and you're like, oh, that's crazy.
If You Were the Last was your feature film directorial debut, but you've worked as a director across many other mediums. How did that help you prepare for If You Were the Last?
And I think anytime you get the opportunity to make work, it informs the next piece of work, you know. So like
Sure.
it's kind of a continuum. Like short films helped me a lot with narrative and emotion and figuring out like how to kind of also just an education on how audiences react to your work, you know. Like I would screen at festivals and see live audiences react to my work and be like, oh, that's interesting, like I know how to, like, you know, you see that response and you're like, oh wow, like I get it, like this is how it works. It's kind of like a dialogue. And the music video work taught me how to be scrappy and think on my feet. And then commercials taught me how to like work with bigger crews. And then the comedy specials helped me a lot with comedic timing and pacing and knowing how to edit a joke. So even in terms of just the writing of it. So all those things kind of culminated in this, my
It's incredible.
debut feature.
This film is so simple, but it's very personal. What were some of the themes you connected with and you wanted to bring to life in this film?
Oh yeah, it's a very personal film. Like even though I wasn't the writer, but Angela Barassa is just like an incredible voice, and the script she wrote is like really a gem. Like and I really connected to it on a deep level. I think I was going through a lot of different personal things at the time when I was first introduced to the script that I could relate to, and I was thinking a lot about friendship and love, and there was just no better time for me to have read that script. And I think I read it hundreds of times, you know, like not, you know, like maybe at least 100, you know, in the course of making the movie. And I kind of continuously found new things about it every time. And I started to, it started to become part of who I am in some weird way, you know, like I was like connecting to it on such an intimate level that I was like constantly asking myself things about my own connections to friends and my own thoughts on love.
I got to talk about the chemistry between Zoe Chao and Anthony Mackie. They're incredible in this film. Talk to me about how they built that chemistry on set, and did that extend off screen as well?
It's really cool to watch them on set. Like they would have like such a vibe. They actually really feel like they became friends, and I definitely feel like their friendship will be there for the long term. Like I kind of saw them just doing all sorts of things, like coming up with handshakes and like just like goofing off all the time too. Like they really got like really cool, like, and it helped a lot on set just because I feel like it's hard to fake that sometimes, you know, like not to, I mean, they're incredible performers and they there's a lot of nuance to their performances, but there was also like a chemistry that's indescribable and electric almost to when you watch them on screen together that I was just like, wow, like it was really a privilege to see.
Zoe plays Jane and Anthony plays Adam. Tell me a little bit about those characters and what did they bring to their roles that weren't on the page?
I feel like there's something like kind of in a way are I think reverses of like tropes we see in romantic comedies, you know, like I think Jane is kind of like more almost like organized and like kind of in charge. She is in charge of the ship and she's the like the lead officer and like it's interesting because she's like kind of like not, even though there's like dream, she does dream, she's very practical, you
Sure.
know. And then Adam is kind of like a goofy, like a goof off kind of character, right? Like he's just like, but he's a gardener too, you know, like you know, he has like this quality about him where he's like at the, you know, he's at the ship's like food source
Sure.
room and he's like kind of tending to plants and animals and there's something about that. And I think like I think they both made the character their own, you know, like they
Right.
found ways to extend it. And I think Zoe, like for instance, would always be knitting on set and kind of created that like character trope in that, like added that character nuance to that character. And then I think even like there was just so many little things we did, like even like picking out like the watches or like little things like that that kind of create a little bit of the character, you know. But I could tell that they were really relating to those characters in some level as well, and like making it their own.
Sure.
And they breathed life into those characters a lot. And you know, we would always work together on set to like make the dialogue feel as organic and natural as possible. Like, you know, so sometimes they would just know those characters well, and then we would have a lot of talks about the script, like what the words meant, you
Sure.
know, and like how to like breathe life into those words. So like they really did go the extra mile, and I think it shows on screen.
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely does. Now, can you talk about balancing the film's tone, which is a lot of comedic moments, sexual tension, and some genuinely heartfelt moments as well between Adam and Jane?
Yeah, totally. I think life is a balancing act.
You're right.
Like, you know, it is kind of like true to life, right? We have a little bit of all those things, right? Sort of like um I think there's a lot of humor and love in life, you know, and like also tragedy, you know. So like
Sure.
all those things kind of like intermix, right? And I think like the biggest thing that I could say about like this idea of balancing the sexual tension is that, you know, sometimes, you know, I think love comes from friendship sometimes, right? And there's always like a danger in the sense of like when you have a friendship, you don't want to lose the friendship. Like you don't want to, you know, jeopardize friendship for like love sometimes because, you know, the stakes get higher. And so you might lose a friend in pursuit of love sometimes, right? Because like if, you know, you guys fall in love and then suddenly the relationship gets more complicated and then it's kind of hard to go back, you know. Um, so I think that's kind of like the truth, I guess, of figuring out that balance. And I think
Sure.
I was aware of that directorially. Like I was always kind of trying to like navigate and explore those themes because they're just so true to life, I think, and they people reflect. I think a lot of people can relate to those things.
Something that you said earlier really intrigued me and something I wouldn't even have thought about. But when you were directing those comedy specials, it helps you edit jokes, which is something I wouldn't have imagined, but it absolutely would. Did your background directing comedy specials help your approach with If You Were the Last?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because when I was doing comedy specials, I was looking at them as cinematic endeavors, right? Like I was going like, okay, I'm shooting an hour of material. I'm pointing to this comedian. I think I approached it like a filmmaker, which is like you point the camera at a subject and then you have to ask like deep questions about who is this person? Why am I filming them? Like, you know, like what are they saying? What do these words mean? And getting a flow for that. And like I was always pushing the style and the blocking and the visuals of comedy specials, you know, as much as I could. But then like I guess like the relationship I built with a lot of those comics and like people like Hannibal Buress, Michael Shea, Taylor Tomlinson, Phoebe Robinson. Like I was watching their material for so many hours, you know, and in the case of Hannibal touring, I toured with him a little bit and you know, I've seen his set so many times and all of these comics I've seen their sets. And then it became kind of like so enamored with comedy and like learning about like just how it all comes together, you know, watching sets early on and scouting talent and things like that, where I was like, it became like part of my language and vocabulary about how to craft a joke or like how the comedic timing of something works, you know, like
Right.
and it translated a lot into my directorial style where like I would like sort of compose scenes almost like knowing how a joke works, you know, and like giving it a comedic timing, which also translates into the drama as well, like or some of the emotional beats, you know, where I was like, this has to have a rhythm, you know, which is something I definitely learned doing a lot of comedy specials.
This film featured a lot of dance sequences with Anthony and Zoe. Can you discuss how much preparation they did for those dance sequences and what inspired some of those dances?
I love dancing. I'm Puerto Rican. It's part of my being. It's part of my essence, so to speak. I grew up dancing, and I dance all the time. It's just for fun, and I still go to clubs and all that. I still dance reggaeton,
I
salsa,
love it.
a little bit of everything. And it's funny because every dance has kind of its own like vibe and its own mood. And so like the way I approach, I mean, Maya, the choreographer, I gotta give it up to her. I really gave her like she really took the assignment to heart, where I was like telling her like I want these dances to evoke an emotional response and I want them to tell a story. And I think the dance that happens, which is like the more contemporary or kind of abstract dance, I remember watching that in the dance studio and crying a little bit. Like I was like, wow, like I was really emotional just watching it, like, without filming it. So I knew I had something in that. And I was really trying to do storytelling through dance, like it tells you like different phases of their relationship, like friendship through line dance or salsa is tension. Contemporary dance is evocative of an emotion. It could be abstract. It could express love and loss, and then obviously like a waltz, a very classic sort of dance, but very referential to other dances in the film, So like there's kind of like a cool story arc just told in the dances.
I love that. That's incredible. Now, if you were to ask me what a spaceship looked like when I was growing up, this is exactly what I would have imagined. What inspired this like 1990s retro space theme look in the production design?
Oh yeah, thanks, man. That's such a high compliment. I mean, definitely was trying to go for that. I was definitely like, there was a playfulness to it. I um I really love stop motion. I love mixed media. It was part of like it's just a part of texture of my filmmaking. Like I love art direction. I also like the idea of just people understanding and looking at people of color with that sensibility, like where we also can do like highly curatorial art directed pieces, like having kind of that almost twee sort of goofy sensibility that is sick, like I love that spaceship.
So
That
do I.
spaceship that spaceship is a character in itself. And I felt like there's something warm about handmade tactile things that like feels like a love letter or a valentine where it's constructed by construction paper and paper mache or like different like mixed veins, and you can feel the handcraftedness of it, like almost giving someone a gift.
Sure.
And I was also like really into miniatures in general. So like I was like trying to like do my own like George Lucas / Ridley Scott, like having like little miniatures on set. It's such a joy,
That's
it's just
so
cool.
cool.
This is cool to hold it, you're like looking at the spaceship and you're like, oh, that's crazy.
And it's also a part of filmmaking that I feel we don't see as much anymore, especially with digital effects and things like that now.
Mhm.
Now, this is your feature directorial debut. What's something you learned from this project that you'll take with you and apply to any other projects you do going forward? And
Uh,
in any other medium as well?
you only get a first feature once, right? Like it's like this is like the first one. I feel like it's says a lot about who the filmmaker is sometimes when you see their first feature, like, oh wow, like what it's cool to think about how all this could be applied to other features that I do in the future. Like I'm curious to myself
Sure.
to get more scripts and bold projects and see like people who want to push the boundary of like what's possible in film, like I think film sometimes it's always an evolving art form and it's always like kind of shifting and changing. And I think there's a lot of conversations about like why film might be feeling like it's stagnating, right? Or why are new projects not um like there's always got to be like some sort of response. I think I'm more interested in like the bolder, like interesting work, like I want to do stuff that's unique or resonates with people on a deeper level, or it's just weird, like I like weird
Yes.
stuff. Like like I want to play with puppets and I want to make people cry just because a puppet's performance is so good, like that kind of thinking is kind of like how my head goes, where I want to like I want to see people fly on screen and not have it be like just because it's a superhero, but like, you
Sure.
know, like I don't know if you remember that old I was thinking it was Ben Savage movie about a kid who could fly, the boy who could fly or something. Yeah,
Vaguely.
but that was cool because this is a movie in suburbia, and the whole premise of the movie is like this questioning of whether this little kid could fly or not, you know, and everyone's questioning it. Everyone's like, "Oh, that kid can't fly," but by the end of the film, he flies, right?
Right.
And I think I like that kind of thing where it's like the magic of film is like it's like having magical moments in film, and so I think my films will always have like a strong emotion and a sense of magic, and I think I'm going to carry those lessons into the next films I make.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was recently announced you're doing the biopic for Cheech and
Oh
Chong.
yeah, I am doing the biopic for Cheech and Chong.
Now, what are you most excited to explore in that film? Speaking of flying and I guess getting high, but no, I'm just kidding. But what are you excited to explore most in that film?
I mean, you know, I'm excited to explore friendship. My movie, in a lot of ways, this movie, If You Were the Last, is about friendship. I think Cheech and Chong have been friends for a long time, so I'm curious to see myself what friendship looks like at that scale, you know?
This is a super random question, but Adam is an advocate of growing weed. He has a green thumb.
Yeah,
And
baby.
when he returns home, that's what he's kind of getting into. Tommy Chong also has his own weed brand now at this point called Tommy Chong's Hemp. How much research did you do into a weed at this point for both of these
It's
projects?
a lifelong journey, my friend.
Yeah.
I think we're still doing the research now. Like, you know.
I mean, I'm right there with you on that research part. Now, during your research process for Cheech and Chong, is there anything you learned about the famous duo that is going to surprise audiences?
Oh, absolutely. I know. I mean, I've been, you know, listening to their records, watching all their movies, reading their books, you know, like there's so much to them. I mean, they're such a, you see, like the thing with Cheech and Chong that I think we have to think about is just like how important they were to the comedic scene, you know, and
Yeah,
like, and what that journey looks like. I'm always fascinated more rather than like I feel like so many times we see the comedian and we see kind of like the final form of the comedian, right? Like it's almost like, oh, here's the comic polished and you know on stage famous already and like you know killing it and not bombing or whatever, you know. And so, but I'm more almost interested in the comedian, like in the thick of it. Like I'm
sure.
still working out my material. I'm not always perfect. I'm not so refined. I have to grind it out. And you know, Cheech and Chong had that phase in their career, and I think that's an important part of just comedy, I guess, you know, like the idea of like how you find your voice
Sure.
in comedy. So like I mean, I don't know. It's gonna be an iconic film, I'll be honest. Like I have a feeling it'll be iconic.
I'm going to tell you right now, I think you're the perfect director to have this friend to have that project in your hands.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I
No,
mean,
I totally look, like you said, it's a lifelong research process that you were doing. But honestly, I do feel that like your creativity infused with who Cheech and Chong are and what they presented and what they can kind of bring to the table, seeing it from a kind of a different lens is going to be a really cool journey. Now I know that we're still in a strike, unfortunately, but had you already started the casting process for this at all?
oh, no comment.
Fair
And then
enough.
blunt. No
Well,
comment.
look, Kristian, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I love this film. I can't wait to talk to you more about more films you do. Man, at this point now, I bond with you, my friend. I bond with you.
Oh, bless. I mean,
Yeah, but
I feel it. The Marvel
there you
thing.
go. There you go. Are you LA based?
I jump back and forth between New York and LA. Wait, is that Marvel or DC? Sorry, let me think.
This is Marvel. I was just doing an interview for Loki right before this. So,
oh, very cool. Oh, I'm in
yeah.
good company then.
Yeah, man. So, look, I appreciate your time. I'd love to chat with you about any future projects you got going on. Thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.